This is where the movers and shakers of Kansas come to talk about life and the lessons learned along the way. This week, our guest is Michael Monteferrante. He's the president and CEO of Envision Incorporated. Envision is a nonprofit that's based in Wichita, which provides training, jobs, and other services to the blind and visually impaired. Monteferrante earned his degree in business management from Boise State University in 1984. From there, he embarked upon a career that took him from Idaho to Canada to France and to New Jersey, among other places. Monteferrante's resume lists 8 for-profit companies he's worked for, 5 as CEO, and the other 3 as vice president. Then in 2013, Monteferrante entered the nonprofit arena, taking the reins of Envision. Part of Envision's work involves hiring the blind and visually impaired to make products that are sold to the United States government. It also has a campus in Dallas, and the company as a whole employs more than 500 people. Coming up, we'll find out more about the life and times of this man charged with leading this important organization. It should be an interesting half hour, as I encourage you to stay tuned, and as I go one-on-one with Envision President and CEO Michael Monteferrante. And thank you for joining us. I'm Victor Hogstrom. It's a pleasure to welcome Envision President and CEO Michael Monteferrante to the program. Great to have you.
It's great to be here, Victor. Thank you.
I'd like to begin with your last name, Monteferrante. Tell us about that name and tell us about some of the pronunciations you've gotten.
Yes, Monteferrante is Iron Mountain in Italian. And so my father's from Italy, born in Italy. I'm first generation. And from a town called Casa Calenda, which is basically middle boot Adriatic in terms of the best way to describe it. And in terms of the pronunciation, Monteferrante, there's various ways.
Right.
I've had people in New Jersey call me Fonty Monty. My first job at Morrison Knudsen, they thought it was 2 people, Mike and Monty, the Ferrante brothers.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, I've had a lot of pronunciations, and a lot of friends call me Monty just for short.
I can imagine. So what about your college days?
Yeah, Monty. Monty was my nickname in college.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were born in Canada. Your parents matriculated to Canada.
Correct.
And born there, and you moved to the United States. Tell us about your growing up days and life in Canada before coming to the U.S.
Yeah, I was born in Vancouver, British Columbia, and I lived there until 6th grade. And then we migrated to the United States at Boise, Idaho, which is where I went to school, and eventually Boise State. And so, yeah, it was a different culture moving from Canada in the 6th grade. There's different pronunciations in the alphabet and so forth. XYZ versus XYZ.
Right.
And then when you mark papers, correct answers are check, wrong answers are an X.
Okay.
So I can remember in 6th grade, the first paper I was, you're grading each other's papers, and the right answers, I was putting a check next to each of them, which of course, in the United States, that's the wrong answer, right? When you get a check. So, little things like that.
So did you finish high school in Idaho too?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So during those high school days, as you were growing up, what did you see yourself becoming? Or did you ever have the inclination of, I'll always be in charge?
No, I wouldn't say that. I played basketball in high school and was fairly small and fairly slow. And so I was never a guy that was in charge, for sure. But as I migrated to college, I started a company while I was in college, a scrapping company, and had some employees and got started that way. And then got in with a relatively large corporation during college that I ended up working for when I graduated from college. And I graduated on a Saturday from Boise State and was in New York City on a Monday, and helped have quite an impact with this company in terms of the New York City subway system and so forth, and moved fairly rapidly after that.
So virtually you could be, you may also be a train expert, a transportation expert.
Yes, for a long part of my career I was an expert in transportation, subway cars and locomotives. I was on the board of governors of the American Public Transit Association for 18 years. So long history with subway cars, locomotives, and then moved to Wichita, Kansas in '03 for buses. So all transportation related equipment.
Mm-hmm. I like to go back to the days of college when you started that business.
Mm-hmm.
What led you to do that? Why?
Had an opportunity. So taking advantage of great opportunities is something I've had the skill to do for a long time. And M&J Scrapping Company was the name of the company. And we were scrapping the copper out of locomotives. So it was that's where I got interested into transit and this company that I was involved with. And they were remanufacturing locomotives. And I got the contract to scrap the copper out of locomotives. And there's tons of copper in locomotives. So that's how I got started.
And so you got that first job out of college, right there in New York City, working for this company.
Yes, Morrison Knudsen.
Right. You have worked now for, I think, 5 commercial or profit-making companies, serving as CEO. Now you are with Envision, a nonprofit. Contrast and compare between the two.
Yeah, that's a great question, because we manage Envision in a very similar fashion than a for-profit company. We are in the business for people who are blind and visually impaired. Mm-hmm. And so we have a mission-based margin side of the business and a mission-based services side of the business. And it's all about serving and producing products, serving people through services and helping fund it through manufacturing of products. And so when you look at it from a business standpoint, it has the same functional type structure as a for-profit business. So I don't see it in too different of a light in regards to how we manage the organization. You have to continue to evolve with the industry. You have to continue to stay true to the core values of what you do. And you have to continue to bring results in order to fund your mission. And so it's all the similar type of things that you do in public and private business. So I kind of involved with the same way.
Michael, but you've worked for these major companies. Why Envision?
It's to serve, right? I've got a long history of serving communities that I live in. And in 2005, I was recruited to be on the board of Envision. And so I didn't know much about Envision at the time.
And where were you at the time?
I was at Optima Bus here in Wichita,
okay.
which is a bus manufacturing company. And so we met for lunch and they talked to me about it, that they wanted a manufacturing person on their board. And okay, I didn't know much about Envision, so I said I'd do a tour. And when I did the tour of Envision at Water Street here in town, I could not tell who was blind and who wasn't. And they were making 3 million plastic bags a day with these machines. So I said, I know what we're going to do for the next 59 minutes of my 1-hour tour, but I said, I'm in. This is amazing. And to this very day, I'm inspired every day I go through the door. And so I left in 2010 to go to Dallas, and then was recruited back by the board to have the opportunity to lead Envision in 2013. and I've been there ever since. And I love what I do, and I love who we serve. And in the state of Kansas, these services are critical to Kansans.
When you graduated from college, had you not gotten that first job offer, what were your goals, your ambition at the time when you graduated? If you had not gotten that offer, what were you planning to do?
Yeah, it was really important for me to get that job because I'm not sure I had a plan B. And but sales is what I felt I wanted to go into and what I felt I could do well. Even though my first job with Morrison Knudsen was in contract administration and the service work of field service work of learning what a subway car is and how it works. I'd never seen a subway car before. So, and through that, I got into sales, government affairs, contract administration, and that's kind of my career until I became a CEO.
Would you say leadership is something that you're born with, or can anyone learn to be a good leader?
It's a combination. I think you have to have some core intuitive values and abilities, but then after that, you can continue to scale and learn. To this day, after leading companies for 30 years, I learn every day and continue to evolve my style and the best way to lead. So you're continuously learning.
Describe your style.
Yeah, it's changed. It's changed over the years from when I was a younger CEO, and most of the business I was involved with were turnaround, troubled organizations. And so it takes a different approach many times when you're dealing with that undercapitalized businesses. And I think now to where I've elevated to the situation to where the style is understanding the business very well and leading by example. But I would say it's a fairly driven environment with always a quest for excellence and being a leader in the field. And to do that, it usually always takes that a little bit of extra. So high expectations and a driven environment, but be honest and fair and move forward. Right. I think that kind of summarizes the style.
Michael, what was the road that led you to the presidency of Envision Incorporated, the organization you now head?
Yeah, similar to what we just mentioned in terms of a passion for Envision in general as a volunteer, as a community volunteer.
You were on the board, right?
Yes, on the board, and then coming back to have the opportunity to actually accelerate the growth of Envision, to expand Envision geographically, and to continue to expand the products that it manufactured. A huge challenge is really what brought me to Envision, and the opportunity to grow Envision and have it be more of a national and global organization.
Well, you were on the board first.
Yep.
How did you become president and CEO?
Okay, so I left, right? So I was on the board, resigned from the board in 2010 and went to Dallas, Texas. And then when we were selling the company in Dallas, I had a couple of options. And one of them was I was approached by Envision to come back to Wichita to be the CEO. And my wife and I decided to take that opportunity when it was offered, and I moved back to Wichita.
So what indications do you have that Envision is making an important difference in the lives of the people you serve?
Oh yes, we see it every day. We see it every day through the multiple departments that make up Envision. We train people and then we launch them into the workforce. We teach inclusion into potential employers so they can hire people with disability. We serve now, we've merged with the Dallas Lighthouse for the Blind, and it's now called Envision Dallas. And there's 150,000 people that need vision care in North Texas. And now we are starting to provide those services to them. So we really increase the quality of life for people who are visually impaired everywhere. We have the Envision conference that we just held last week with 215 participants from around the globe. We have adventure camps, technology camps for kids that they're now coming from not only Texas and Kansas, but they're coming from all over the United States. And so every individual that we have the opportunity to provide service and learning to impacts them.
That must be a great feeling.
Oh, it's great.
To see that. So what have you learned during your time at Envision as the president and CEO?
Yeah, it's helped me continue to have a higher degree of passion for people.
Very good. Let's check you out a little more with this little game, okay?
Yeah.
And see how that passion comes out for people.
Okay.
I'll give you a choice and you tell me your preference and why. The first one, a good book or a good movie?
Yeah, I think these questions are all going to be probably, you love them both, right? But I love a great book.
And why?
Well, it goes into deeper learning situations, so I like good books where you can have takeaways and learn from them. And a lot of them are business books that I've read throughout the years that I've just really enjoy.
Comedy or drama?
Comedy. I love to laugh.
Lasagna or sushi?
Lasagna. I'm Italian.
That's a good reason. Frank Sinatra or U2?
U2. I love rock music. I love that genre of music.
City or country?
Country. The United States, because of its diversity across the board and so many amazing things to see in our country.
Beautiful things or beautiful experiences?
Beautiful experiences, because they're endless.
Yeah, that's true. Western U.S. or Eastern United States?
Western United States. The East is fun, but the West is just beautiful with mountains and so forth. I'm a big mountain fan, and mountain lakes. Even though there is lakes in the East, I prefer the West.
And you're caught up in the Midwest?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right in between.
Which is great too.
Right in between.
Yes. Your preference of work, for-profit or non-profit?
Not for profit, because you're serving people.
So tell us about the biggest challenge you've faced as a CEO, Michael.
The biggest challenge that I've always faced as a CEO is to establish a unified culture where everyone believes in terms of where you're aligned to go. And I find that always to be a challenge and an endless challenge, but a fun one. And that Envision, I've never been closer to really attaining. I've never been closer than where we are right now in beginning to attain that aligned culture.
So what could you be better at as a CEO, in your opinion?
Patience. I probably should be a little bit more patient than I am. It's probably one of my biggest weaknesses is patience.
What's the best piece of advice that you could give to a young person about life?
Check your ego at the door.
So true. So true. What about working for a profit organization and a non-profit organization?
It's really, to me, in terms of advice to someone that's considering doing that.
Right.
Boy, that's a tough call in terms of which way. I think it helps. I think it helps if you start to work for a for-profit situation, and then some of the skills and lessons that you learn in that kind of an environment, and then you can transfer some of that to a not-for-profit situation, to where you can start to instill good, solid business practices in a not-for-profit. And because a lot of that is transferable, and at the end of the day, a not-for-profit shouldn't be too much different than a for-profit, except that you don't distribute your earnings in terms of what you do, and you retain them versus distributing to shareholders. So to me, that's really the difference. And but the skills that you can provide, you can learn in private business, are very helpful if you transfer them to a not-for-profit.
So Michael, what does it mean to be a Monteferrante in Wichita?
Well, for me and my family, it means that we're upstanding citizens that want to contribute to our community to advance it. And I've spent a lot of time committed to that here in Wichita, Kansas, in terms of serving on multiple not-for-profit boards to help progress this incredible city that we all live in. And that's important to me. It's important to my family to help make Wichita the best place we can all be.
Because you serve on the boards of various organizations too. Recently stepping down as chairman of the board of the chamber.
Yep, I was 2019 chair of the chamber.
Right.
Yep, and was probably on that board off and on since I arrived in '03.
Wow.
Big chamber fan.
Right.
Kansas, the Red Cross, the Plains, and visit Wichita, the Kansas Humane Society. Just great organizations that we have here.
Right. So what is the meaning of life in your view? Why do people live today?
Why do people live today?
Why should people live today?
To enjoy your life. The greatest thing about life is the enjoyment of life. Having that balance, having fun, and enjoying your life.
Has your philosophy of life changed over the time, since from that first job that you received to today?
Dramatically.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, the first job, the first part of my career, not only the first job, the first probably 4 jobs that I had in terms of progressing through was about that, was about the job. It wasn't about that comment that I just made in terms of enjoyment. And it was a very driven corporate environment to where that came first. And then now, 30 years later, it's a blast working at Envision. It's fun for me to be working at Envision, but it's also the family that we have, and the time and the enjoyment to spend with them, and the importance of that balance. And I didn't think much about balance at one time in my life early on, so I've progressed in that way.
The biggest mistake people make in life, what would you say that is?
The biggest mistake in life that people can make is letting life pass you by.
And people do that.
Slow down and enjoy it.
Smell the coffee.
Because it will pass you by.
Right.
Yeah, it's the biggest mistake.
How do you help people understand that? How do you help people not do that? Not rush, but slow down. I mean, what could you say to someone to help them understand that?
Be transparent about it. Talk to them about it when you see it. I mean, it's a hard to identify sometime unless you get close to someone, right? And then when you get close to someone, you can feel free to counsel. But if you're not close to someone, it's not anybody's right to counsel, right? Because they don't understand. I would say, for the most part, it looks like I move pretty fast. But I spend a ton of quality time with my family, and also a ton of quality time with my friends, and do what I want to do. But it looks like I'm pretty darn busy, moving pretty quick. But if you know my universe, you can see the situation. So until you really get to know someone, it's probably their business. But if you get to know someone and you start seeing them pass things by that they could be spending more quality time with, a certain thing, I think it's fair to be transparent and honest with them and say, hey, it's an observation.
Right.
And you can't really go much further than that.
So, Michael, what has been the most defining moment of your life, if any?
Oh yeah, sure. I've got some, but the most defining moment is probably marrying my beautiful wife. She's absolutely the best thing in the world. It's a defining moment, us making that decision to get married.
And tell us about your family. You mentioned your family quite about twice now.
Yeah, 3 children. My wife had 2 sons from a previous marriage that when we got married, I adopted them. And I've got a daughter from a previous marriage. And she lives now in Vancouver, British Columbia. Our youngest is 25 and lives in Vancouver. My other son lives in Spokane, Washington. And then our oldest son, Vincent, just moved back to Wichita and now runs an orthodontic practice here in town. So the oldest one is home now after being gone for 10 years. And so we hope the other 2 will eventually follow them.
So with all of the wonderful times you've had in your life and the achievements professionally, what's on your bucket list?
Retirement.
Okay.
That truly is my bucket list. I've done a lot of fun stuff and want to do a lot more fun things. And so the next big bucket list that I have is eventually retiring and leaving Envision in great shape, having a great succession plan, and being able to be retired.
On that note, Michael Monteferrante, thank you so much for joining me one-on-one.
Thank you, Victor. It was great to be here.
It's been a pleasure. And it was a pleasure having you watch the program. oneonone@kpts.org is our email address. That's if you have a question or comment. We always like hearing from you. Until next time, I'm Victor Hogstrom. Do take care, and I'll see you again soon.